Hey everyone, today we will be continuing the Omega Blade with Chapter 10. The five of them have been riding south for several days when they reached the village of Kara's Vale. After getting 2 rooms at the inn, they tied their horses up outside. Thanks to a local wizard, they learned that only a handful of the weapons they'd gotten from Throckcom's cave were actually enchanted, and none of the armor was. The Dory was a 7-foot spear with an 18-inch spearhead. The Xiphos was a short sword with an 18-inch double-edged blade that was primarily for stabbing and had slightly wavy edges. Both had steel blades. The Aspis was a circular steel shield measuring 5 feet across that could be used as a bludgeoning weapon in a pinch. On their own, the Dory and Xiphos each enhanced the user's physical abilities, and the Aspis manifested a full set of steel armor custom to the user's needs. When the sword or spear was paired with the shield, their blades became sharper. When paired with each other, the sword and spear became more durable. When all 3 were used by the same person, the sword and spear's combined physical enchantments all but negated not only the weight of all 3, but the weight of the armor manifested by the shield as well. After making sure the others didn't mind, Val swapped out his weapons and armor for the enchanted set. He also selected 5 javelins, since his aim with a bow was abysmal at worst and mediocre at best. Larik swapped out his steel helmet and chestplate for a full body set that offered less coverage but greater mobility than Val's old set. They separated the other enchanted items for the rest, and while trying to find somewhere to sell the extra equipment, they headed to the local tavern to ask the bartender. Upon entering, they saw a human man in his early 60s. "Valerius?" he asked. Val did a double take. "Tarvel?" Tarvel Shadeclaw stood around 5.5 feet tall. He had white skin, short black hair, and gray eyes. A 3-foot scimitar known as a killage hung from his right hip. "Have you come to seek Haley?" Tarvel asked. Val nodded. "Is she here?" Tarvel shook his head. "She came home after Emberhaven, but she left about 2 weeks ago. I assumed to prepare for Dawnhill. I actually wanted to ask, the scar on your face." Tarvel interrupted. "Did my daughter do that?" Val blinked. He had barely even thought about his new scar since Emberhaven. "Yes, but why would you think that?" Tarvel took a deep breath. "Have a seat. We need to talk." Val looked at the others, then sat down at the bar, and they followed suit. "Can I get you anything?" Tarvel asked. Val thought for a moment. "I'll take a twisty, but with strawberries instead of blueberries." "All out of strawberries, sorry. Raspberries?" "I have raspberries, yes." Tarvel turned to the others. "The rest of you?" "Kozith's kiss," Aaron replied. "Demon's blood," Nefarius said. "Blue nose," Larik said. "Banana milkshake," Lux said. Once Tarvel returned with their drinks, introductions were made. Aaron was the first to sip her drink, and she let out a sigh like it was hot chocolate on a cold day. "What were you saying about Kaylee?" Val asked. "You knew about our relationship when we were younger, so why would you even ask if she gave me this scar?" "We all hear stories of children who are just born wrong," Tarvel said. "Bad seeds, born without empathy. Kaylee was never like that, but there was always something off about her." "What do you mean?" "You're not the only person she's hurt despite caring about them." "I know she cared about you, and I assume she still does, but make no mistake, the scar on your face means she was trying to kill you." The last shred of hope Val had, that he may have been wrong about that, vanished. "Is that why you moved away?" he asked. "Because you were afraid she might hurt me, or someone else?" Tarvel shook his head. "No, the reason we gave was the truth. For reasons I'll never understand, no matter how much Kaylee cares about someone, she'll always prioritize her own goals over them. It's like she can just turn it off whenever it suits her." "How can you be sure it's not just an act?" Lux asked. He glared at her. "Besides the fact that she's my daughter, I take pride in being able to tell when someone's affections are genuine." "Oh, I'll have to take your word for it." She sipped her milkshake. Tarvel turned to Val. "You gonna be at Dawnhill?" "We are, yes." Tarvel looked down. "Just promise me that you won't kill her unless she gives you no other choice." Val took a deep breath. "I can't promise that. I'm sorry. If things had gone differently at Emberhaven, they might be different now." "I understand." After paying for their drinks, they returned to the inn, where Val pulled a map out of his bag. "Where are you going?" Lux inquired, while Aaron sipped a second Kozith's kiss that she had gotten to go. "I'm going after the Omega Blade," he replied as he unrolled the map. "Wanna come?" Lux sighed. "I'll go get the boys." She left, returning a minute later with Nefarius and Larik. "Alright, can someone explain what the Infinity Blade actually is?" Nefarius asked. "All I know is that it's a sword with a powerful enchantment." "It's a sword that's enchanted with a desire to be wielded by someone worthy of its power, plus a combat-related enchantment of some kind," Aaron said, having finished her drink. "No one really knows if it's just an enchantment or if it really has a mind of its own. It appears in a random location and manifests a set of challenges to test anyone who seeks it. Once someone claims it, it becomes linked to them, and when they die, it vanishes. Sometime later, it reappears in a new location with a new combat-related enchantment, manifests a new set of challenges and starts the whole cycle over again. The previous owner died in last year's Dawnhill games, Val added. I'll help you get it, Lux said. But it's just one sword. What's in it for the rest of us? Val thought for a moment. Whichever one of us claims the Omega Blade gets a smaller share of whatever profit we make selling the weapons and armor. She shrugged. Sounds fair to me. Do we even know where the blade is? Word is that it's somewhere near the village of Goldhaven. Laeric raised an eyebrow. How do you know that? It's a tiefling village, Nefarious explained. I have a friend who lives there. Last time I visited, he mentioned that they've been getting a lot more outsiders passing through than usual. They get so many different answers that they have no idea what to believe. They've heard everything from lost treasure to a hibernating monster to some sort of ancient weapon. Sounds like a good place to start, Val said, standing up. Get some sleep, we should probably leave in the morning. It took them 3 days to reach Goldhaven, and it was mid-morning when they arrived. The village was surrounded by a 10-foot wall, and the road leading up to the gate was lined with bushes and shrubs. Val took the lead, and he was less than 20 feet from the gate when a net launched from the bushes wrapped around him and knocked him off his horse. A second net took Nefarious down, and Aaron, Lux, and Laeric threw themselves off their horses to avoid meeting the same fate. Scrambling to her feet, Aaron found herself face to face with a tiefling woman in her mid-20s. Standing 2 inches taller than Aaron, average height for a tiefling woman, she had peach-colored skin, red eyes, and long blue hair that was a shade or two darker than Aaron's. She wore chainmail and carried a 3-foot rapier in her right hand and a foot-long rapier-esque dagger in her left. Not missing a beat, Aaron drew her hook swords, and Laeric and Lux followed suit. A moment later, 3 more tieflings rose from the bushes. The first was a man in his mid-20s who was just as tall as Lux, carried a one-handed axe and wooden shield, and had silver eyes, maroon skin, and short black hair. The second was a woman in her early 20s who was an inch shorter than Val, and had gold eyes, white skin, and long red hair. She carried a bow and arrow. The third was a man in his early 30s who stood just under 5 feet tall, and had white eyes, light brown skin, and short dark brown hair. He carried a 5-foot halberd with a 4-inch spike, and a 3-inch hook. Unlike the first tiefling, the other 3 wore leather armor. Stand down, the peach-skinned tiefling demanded. Aaron shook her head. You gotta ask nicely. As if. The maroon-skinned tiefling man rolled his eyes. Kazori, stop flirting with her. Fuck you, Thexus. Kazori suddenly thrust her rapier at Aaron, who moved left to avoid getting stabbed. Aaron slashed back, but Kazori blocked the strike with her dagger, then shoved Aaron back. Kazori jabbed again, so Aaron dodged, but it was a feint, and Kazori thrust a third time, penetrating Aaron's Leviathan armor just enough to draw blood. Kazori tried to use her dagger to yank the sword from Aaron's right hand, but Aaron punched with that hand, causing the dagger's blade to glance off her armor. The hook sword's crescent-shaped guard was sharpened, and although it was stopped by Kazori's chainmail, the punch hit hard enough that she gasped in pain. Because she was focused on her opponent, Aaron didn't realize that Thexus had incapacitated Lux until she saw him approaching from the left out of the corner of her eye. She slashed with her right sword, and when Kazori blocked it, Aaron slashed low with her left sword. The blade was stopped by the chainmail, but Aaron immediately pulled back, catching Kazori's ankle and tripping her. Not missing a beat, she linked her swords at the hooks, made a 3/4 turn on her heel, and lashed out, slashing Thexus across the chest from just under 8 feet away. Before she could retrieve her second sword from the ground, Kazori suddenly kicked her in the back, sending her sprawling. When Aaron rolled onto her back, Kazori's rapier was mere inches from her neck. I was trying to end this peacefully, Kazori growled. Really? Aaron asked. Then why did you lead with nets? Because some people don't like having to take orders from someone younger than them and think they know better. I heard that, the short tiefling man shouted as he stood over a disarmed Laeric. Good, Kazori snapped. Sighing, Aaron set down her sword. Fine, have it your way. Thexus, Azilius, get those 2 out of the nets, Kazori said. Aryahala, keep an eye on the others. The tiefling man freed Val and Nefarious while the archer kept an arrow ready. Releasing Aaron, Kazori sheathed her weapon, then put 2 fingers to her mouth and whistled loudly. The gate opened, and 3 more tiefling men walked out and secured the horses. Half an hour later, the 5 of them were sitting in individual prison cells, with Lux and Nefarious on one side and the others on the other. On one end of the cell block was a door leading to the rest of the building, and on the opposite end was a large cell meant to hold multiple prisoners. Their armor had been removed, and Aaron's left arm had been bandaged. Just inside the door, Kazori and Aryahala were conversing in Infernal as they stood guard. I don't understand why they keep assigning Azilius to my team, Kazori was saying. I've told them that he doesn't like taking orders from someone younger than him, and there are plenty of team leaders older than me. Maybe they just trust you to handle him yourself, Aryahala suggested. If that's the case, they really shouldn't. Aryahala shrugged. Maybe they're just waiting for him to fuck up badly enough that they can actually punish him for it. Kazori snorted. If that was the case, you'd think they'd at least have the decency to tell me. Maybe they're testing both of you, Aaron suggested, speaking in accented Infernal. 6 heads snapped in her direction, and a dozen eyes widened in surprise. How and why do you speak Infernal? Nefrius asked. What do you mean? Kazori asked a moment later. Eren looked at Nefrius. Later. She turned to Kazori. Maybe they're testing your leadership by assigning you someone whose respect is harder to earn. Maybe they're seeing if you can get him in line before he fucks up badly enough that they can do something about it. The problem with that hypothesis is that waiting for him to fuck up that badly could put lives at risk, Kazori pointed out. Eren shrugged. Maybe they trust you to keep those lives safe if it does happen. Kazori walked over to stand in front of Eren's cell. What's your name, Triton? Eren. Licking her lips, Kazori leaned against the cell bars. Sorry about your arm, Eren, she said softly. Does it still hurt? Eren sighed. Yes, but it stopped bleeding. Someone will be here to question you soon, Kazori said, switching to Aquan. If it still hurts after that, I would be happy to make it up to you. Kazori's Aquan was accented and a bit stiff, but there was no mistaking the flirtatious tone behind her words. I do not think that will be necessary, Eren replied, thankful that she wasn't blushing. Kazori shrugged. Just thought I would offer. Eren watched with wide eyes as Kazori returned to Aryahala. What just happened? Lux asked after a moment of silence. She said someone will be coming to question us soon, Eren replied. So how is it you know Infernal? Nefrius inquired. I barely even know it. Back when it was just Val and me, one of our clients couldn't afford to pay us in gold and silver, so we offered to use magic that would let us instantly learn a language of our choosing, she explained. I picked Primordial, Val added. She picked Infernal. The main door opened and a tiefling man in his mid-30s walked in. He was between Val and Lux in height, and carried a 6-foot wooden staff. He had brown skin, white eyes, and short black hair. Kairos! Nefrius exclaimed. Texas filled me in, Kairos said. I'm sorry for what happened. Why did it happen anyway? Larrick inquired. We've been getting a lot of people coming through here looking for some enchanted weapon, Kairos explained. Last week some humans and dwarves came by, apparently under the impression that we know where it is. We don't, and they got violent when we wouldn't tell them. One of them almost took my eye out, Aryahala chimed in. Kairos sighed. I trust you, Nefrius, but you'll still need to be questioned. Nefrius nodded. I understand. Kairos let Nefrius out and led him to the door. 20 minutes later, Kairos returned alone. You, Triton, he said. Sorry, Eren, you're next. Eren followed him out of the cell block, down a hallway, and into a small room. Inside, a tiefling woman in her late 50s was sitting at a wooden table. A glass vial and 4 small cups were sitting on the table. This is Diffie, one of our druids, Kairos said. Diffie had black eyes, long brown hair, and yellow-white skin, the last of which suggested Eastern heritage. A staff, presumably magic, rested against the wall next to her. Have a seat, Diffie said, gesturing to the chair across from hers. Eren sat down and Kairos left the room. Diffie uncorked the vial, poured a translucent blue liquid into one of the cups, and slid it across the table. Truth serum. Drink it. Eren picked it up and smelled it. Blueberry? Not exactly. Shrugging, Eren drank it in one gulp. Let's start with something simple, Diffie said. What's your name? After the questioning was over, Eren left the room and found Kazori waiting for her. Feels weird, doesn't it? Very, Eren admitted, still under the serum's effects. I'm sorry about how our first encounter went down, Kazori said, taking a step closer. If it makes you feel any better, I have a bruise on my arm where you punched me with your sword. Eren chuckled softly. It does, yeah. Sorry, though. What happened first, your first kill or your first kiss? First kill, Eren answered honestly. Kazori raised an eyebrow. How old were you? And who was it? 7. It was a fish. Kazori laughed. Sorry, I meant, you know what? Doesn't matter. How old were you when you had your first kiss? 9. Do you want to fuck? Yes. Kazori removed her sword and dagger and set them on an empty table. She made a come hither motion with her finger, then turned and stepped into a side room, closing the door but not latching it. Eren followed her inside, where she found the tiefling already undressing, and followed suit. The room had several beds that appeared to be more comfortable than the cots found in the cells. I'd be lying if I said I never do this, Kazori said, but I don't do it very often. I do, Eren admitted. It's been 4 years since I had sex with someone a second time. Kazori suddenly pushed Eren down onto one of the beds. Then let's just try to have fun, yeah? Eren nodded as she was pinned down. Feeling a pair of lips on her neck, she inhaled sharply and pushed up on the tiefling woman's shoulders. Gills, gills, she hissed. Sorry. Kazori switched to kissing her collarbone. Eren closed her eyes. Soon she felt the lips moving lower, and a few minutes later she was in ecstasy. So ends Chapter 10. I have not decided what video I'm going to do next week, so it might be this, or it might be something movie-related. We'll just have to wait and see. That's all for now. Stay safe in these crazy times.